Boker Tov, or excuse me, Erev Tov. It's evening. Erev Tov, Shalom. Good evening, and welcome to our Hebrews, our beginners Hebrews class. Baruch haba. We welcome you. And tonight we're going to take up the letter Tet. Last week we finished Chet, and so tonight we'll take up the letter Tet. So let's go through the Aleph Bet chart again. And tonight, this evening, we'll go to here. So Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet. Again, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet. Again, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet. Numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so Tet is the 9th letter of the Aleph Bet. So this is the letter Tet, and the paleoglyph, and its numerical value is 9. You see what I've got going on over here. Make sure everybody can see okay. All right, so here we have the modern Hebrew. Here we have the paleoglyph, which is a circle with an X in it, and actually it's a basket with a snake inside. We'll be talking about that further on tonight. But the paleoglyph is actually a basket with a snake inside, a serpent inside, and then its number is 9. So this is the modern Ivrit. This is the paleo, and then the numerical value of 9. So the letter Tet. So introducing you to this letter. Tet is the 9th letter. And the sound of the letter is that of T. That is T, from the, like the letter T, which would start 10 or 10th or Turkey or anything with a T. And so it is the sound of the letter T, the English letter T. So if you're transliterating, that is, you're changing the Hebrew to, or you're spelling the Hebrew with the English alphabet, Tet would be spelled with a T. It has the same sound as the letter Tav, which is the last letter of the alphabet. So Tet has the same sound as the letter Tav. So again, this is problematic when we're transliterating, as we talked about last week with Chet and Kaf. When you're transliterating, or Bet and Vit and Vav, these all have the same sound to them. They all have the same sound to them. So if you're transliterating, if you're trying to figure out how the word is spelled, because that is significant, giving meaning to the word and helping to understand the word, if you're transliterating into English and you're using the letter T, the English letter T, then you don't know whether it's the Tet or the Tav, because both have the same sound. So the sound is that of the letter T, but it is the same sound as the letter Tav. And so if you're transliterating, you have to figure out which one it is. You have to know whether it's the Tav or the Tet. So Tet is simply put, and we're going to see in a few minutes how all of this works, but Tet simply put is the Chet upside down. It is an upside down Chet. So here you have the letter Chet, and here you have the letter Tet. And so you can see that they have just taken this letter and turned it upside down, added a little decoration there. So it's slightly different, but basically it's this letter turned upside down. And there's a reason for that gets implied into the word. And so Tet is Chet upside down. Can you see the letters back there? ¿Puedes verle? Chet, if you remember that Chet is a combination of the Vav and the Zayin. You put them together. So if you look at this letter here, the Chet, and here you see the Vav. This is the Vav and this is the Zayin. So basically you put these two letters together and you have the letter Chet. You see the wing right there and then the wing on this side here. So they're joined together, and then you have the little wing off to this side, and that's this right here, the horn, if you would, the keren of Chet. And so the keren of Chet is off of the Zayin, is this part of the Zayin. And so you see it, you can combine these two letters and you come up with this. Well, the Tet is Chet upside down, so it is also a combination of Vav and Zayin, just turned upside down. And since Vav and Zayin from the Chet, since the Vav and the Zayin from the Chet represent the wedding, represent the marriage, and so the Vav is the bride and the Zayin is the groom, and the groom invites the bride to come under his talit, under his chuppah. Okay, and so this is the two of them joined together. This is the male and the female joined together. So you have the Vav and the Zayin joined together. But remember that we spoke, and we'll get into this also in just a minute, we spoke of this being a symbol of potentiality, the potential of a newly married couple, of a couple who's been betrothed or engaged, that they're engaged to one another. And so they have potential. And they have dreams, they have hopes, aspirations, those kinds of things. They have the desire to have children and to raise their children. They have dreams of what their children would be, and hopes and goals and all of these kinds of things. So as Chet was the bride in the state of potentiality, so Tet is the bride in the state of reality. So Chet is the woman engaged to the man or betrothed to the man, or at the beginning of the marriage, at the beginning of the wedding, the marriage. So that is the state of potentiality. She in her virginity, her womb is sealed. And we spoke to that last week. You remember the Chet, that it is closed off. You notice the top here, it's closed off, and then you have the line at the bottom. So the womb is closed off. There's potential. As we spoke last week, every woman has the potential to be a mother. Every woman has potential to be a mother. And remember that we spoke last week that this concerns some women because they are unable to have children haven't had children or they're unable to have children. And I reminded you of Sarah, the wife of Abraham, who not only could not have children, she had a double whammy, if you would, against her, in that not only was she unable to have children because there was something wrong with her womb, and then the second whammy was that she was beyond the age of having children. She could not have children because she was beyond the age. She was 90 years old. She was old enough to be a great-grandmother or a great-great-grandmother. And so she was well beyond the age of bearing children. And, somewhere in the 40s and 50s when menopause takes place. And she's well beyond that. And so she had this double this double thing against her, that she was twice unable to have a child and give birth, become pregnant and give birth. Thus, when the Malak, the angel, spoke to her, or spoke to Abraham, and the Malak, being Mashiach, spoke to Abraham and said that they would give birth, and she giggled at the thought of it, and the Malak heard her and asked why she laughed, and she denied laughing. And so the name of that child, she does in fact become pregnant. She gives birth to a child, to a son, and she names him Yitzhak, which means laughter, because she laughed when the angel said that she would have a child. She wondered how in her old age, not only that her womb was sealed, so she could not bear children, but in her old age, that how in the world she would be able to bear a child. So she does bear a child. God performs a miracle. The story of Shmuel, of Samuel, and his mother, her womb was closed. She goes to the Mishkan and the tabernacle, and there she pleads with God for a child, and God answers her. He hears her cry, and he answers her, and within a year she has Shmuel, and she takes Shmuel to the temple as she had promised Hashem, and there she gives him as a servant, as an eved to Hashem, to serve for the rest of his life there in the Mishkan. So you have potentiality. So this is why I say, and I shared with you one of our own ladies who could not have children. The doctor said she would never be able to have children, that there was a problem. We prayed with her, and she did, in fact, have a child a couple of years ago. She did have a child, and he's growing into a fine young man. And so this is why we say that every woman has the potential to be a mother. Every woman has the potential to bring forth a child. I did not say every woman would, but the potential is there. And so Chet is the bride in the state of potentiality. Tet is the bride in the state of reality. So now we are in reality. So as Chet, the womb is sealed. Now with Tet, the womb is open. You see the opening at the top of the womb. This is the womb of the woman, and here it's closed. Now here it's open. And so you have the potentiality opening up to become reality. And so this is true with every person. This is true with all of us, that all of us have potential. But are we open to that potential to bring it about into reality? Do we take the opportunities that are given to us and take those opportunities given to us and bring them? That's potential. The opportunity is there. That's potential. But now it's up to us to bring it about into reality, to bring it into the real world, into actuality, we can say. And so taking our hopes and our dreams and our desires and all of these things, which is all potentiality, these things can happen as as they say, it could happen. And so it could happen. There's potential. So each of us have potential that these things can happen to us, with us, for us, through us, by us, all of that. So there are people who think, well, I'm just this or I'm just that. And so, God's never going to use me. Why would God use me? Because I'm just a small person. I'm just a little this. I'm just a little that. We're just a small congregation. How could God ever use us? And so people have all of those kinds of ideas. Well, but you see, you're not looking at the reality. You're not looking at the actuality. Because everything is that in which God is involved is a great thing, is an awesome thing. And so I discourage talking as though we are just a small congregation, just a small this or a small that, because there's an old song that we used to sing called "Little is Great When God is in It." And so you may be just one person, but God has the power, the ability, the authority to use one person in a great and powerful way. And oftentimes he chooses to use. Look at how small David was. Look at how small David was when he goes after Goliath, when he goes after the giant. He's just a teenage boy. He's just a young, not even an adult yet. And he's a shepherd boy. But he goes fearlessly against the giant. And so we could say that David was little, and yet he's great because God was in him, working in him and through him, so that he slew the giant. And in slaying the giant, that the Yisraelim were able to overcome the Philistine and were able to defeat them there on the battlefield. And the children of Israel, and Israel did not have problems with the Philistine since then. They did not have problems with them after that. And so basically the people of the Philistine were wiped out in the ages of David and Shlomo, Solomon. And people will then say, well, I'm not a David. Well, David wasn't a David either until he turned himself over to God to be used, until he fearlessly stepped up and said, Hineni, here am I, use me. Same as Yisyahu said when he heard the voices in heaven saying, whom shall we send and who will go for us? And Yisyahu said, here am I, send me. Hineni, look at me, send me. And so David had the same attitude. And those are the ones whom God will use. It's not that God won't use you, it's that you won't allow him to use you. You don't give him permission to use you. Not that he needs your permission, but if you want to sit on the sidelines, if you just want to sit on the bench, yeah, he'll let you sit on the bench. You miss the blessings and the miracles and all of those things. If you want to be used by Hashem, then you need to stand up and say, Hineni, here am I, look at me. There's an old baseball song called Put Me In, Coach. I want to play. And it's the story of a young man who's sitting on the bench in a baseball team. And he wants to go in. And he said, the kid says, I'll play anywhere. Put me in anywhere. I'll play right field, left field, wherever, second base. I'll play anything. Shortstop. Just put me in. Let me play. And that's the kind of desire that we need to have, that we don't want to sit on the sidelines. We don't want to be sitting on the bench. We want to be active in the game. We want to play the game. I remember when I was in junior high and I was on the basketball team. I'd never played basketball in my life. And I wanted to play. I wanted to play very badly. I was very clumsy and awkward and uncoordinated. I was in 7th grade, but I wanted to play basketball. And so I was sitting there and I would sit next to the coach and I would ask the coach, put me in, coach, can I play? Can I play? Can I play the whole game? And I was very disappointed that he wouldn't let me play. He told me later that the reason he would not let me play was because I had my tennis shoes were beat up, to to put it mildly, used up and had holes in them and those kinds of things. And so it was, he was embarrassed. He was embarrassed for me, embarrassed of me. And so he wouldn't let me play. I played on into high school. I was on the team, didn't get to play much, but I can remember in high school sitting on the junior varsity team and sitting there next to the coach and begging the coach, begging and put me in. I wanted to play. He wouldn't put me in because I wasn't a good player. So he would leave me sitting on the bench until the very end of the game. And like the last 30 seconds of the game, he'd finally put me in. And I would pay. And of course, amazingly, we were always losing by 10, 15, 20 points. And there was no way that we could win. I remember one game in particular, and actually it was a varsity game, and I was a junior in high school, and I sat there on the bench. We were playing a team up the road, and I was sitting on the bench, and I was asking him to put me in. He wouldn't put me in, and finally, the last 30 seconds, he put me in, and I ran straight in, and they threw the ball in, and I stole the ball. I intercepted the ball and went for a basket, and the guy from the other team tripped me so that I couldn't make a basket, and I fell down on my knees and kind of hurt myself a little bit there. But we need to have that kind of enthusiasm. I lost my enthusiasm after that, to be honest with you, and I didn't play basketball my senior year. In fact, I think that was my sophomore year that happened. I didn't play my junior or senior year. I was the manager for the team, but I didn't play. But regardless, we need to have that kind of enthusiasm of a young person wanting to get involved, wanting to be involved. We need to have that fire in our hearts, that desire within us to get involved and to be used of God, to allow Him to use us. And so every human being has potential. Every human being, not just those who are Messianic and not just those who are Torah observant. We all have ability. We all have potential. It's simply the desire of being used of God. Do we want Him to use us? And so we make excuses that I'm too small and I'm too this and I'm too that. I don't know enough. I don't have enough. And all of these kinds of things. And so we make excuses as to why Hashem can't use us, won't use us. In reality, it's our own lack of emunah. It's our own lack of trust and confidence in God to use us. And oftentimes we don't want to be used. And so we're in this position between chet and tet, where we have the potential, but tet, we will not allow that potential to become actual, to become reality. And so tet is the bride in the state of reality. That the tet is the bride who gives herself over to her husband because she wants to have children. So as the bride to be, she has the potential of having children. But now as the wife, she opens herself up to the husband, and now she has the actuality, the reality. In effect, tet is the pregnant woman. Okay, so tet is the consummation of chet. That is chet impregnated. And so you'll see up here, you'll see this little tail coming in. And this is, in effect, we can say that this is a yud, which we'll get to next. That's the next letter, actually, the yud. Remember that these letters are all next to each other because they have a relationship. So you have the vav, then you have the zayin. The vav is related to the zayin. Why? Because the zayin is a vav with wings. They're related to each other. And now we have the chet after it's vav, zayin, and then a chet. Why chet? Because chet is made up of vav and zayin, the combination of the two, so that we have a bride. And now you have tet next to chet. Why? Because tet is also a combination of vav and zayin, but this is the consummation of the bride. That is the completion, as it is written in Reshit, where God tells Adam and Chava that they are to be joined together. It's an amazing story that we don't have time to get into tonight. We'll be talking more about this when we get into Genesis chapter 2 in a week or two on our Shabbat, Boker Shabbat service. But that he tells them that the man is to leave his mother and father, and that he is to join himself. That it says to cleave, that is to take her, almost like the idea is almost like an inescapable way to pull her in such a way that he would never let go of her. So that the scripture says, so that they become echad, so that the two become one flesh, it says. And this is done in the consummation, in the act of consummating the wedding, the marriage. Consummation is the physical act of joining together, of the two joining together in the bed, in the sexual act. Speaking on that, speaking to those terms, a man and a woman, in both the eyes of God and the eyes of the government, a man and a woman who have never consummated, they are not seen as actually being married. And in fact, if a man and a woman in the law, according to the law of the land, if a man and a woman have not consummated the act of marriage, have not consummated their marriage through the physical act, they can have the marriage annulled as though it had never happened, because nothing did happen. And so they have the marriage annulled. Annulled means that, null means zero. So it means that it never took place. And so they don't have to go through divorce. They just part and go their separate ways. They go to a judge. He basically tears up the marriage certificate and says, okay, it never happened. And the two can go their own ways as single people. This is also true in the eyes of God. When in the relationship is a couple considered to be married in the eyes of God, when they perform the sexual relationship, when they have the sexual relationship, they are considered as being one. And so this is why we need to be careful about having the physical relationship before the act of marriage, or having it with this person or that person, multiple partners and all of these kinds of things, because God sees you as being married to that person. If you doubt me, check out what Rav Shaul has to say in the Brit Chadashah, I believe it's in 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians, I don't remember exactly where, thinking off the top of my head, but where he warns that, he says, do you not know that having a relationship, a physical relationship with a prostitute, is that she becomes your wife, that you become married to her, that you become one, that you have union with her. And he says, what business do you have making this prostitute your wife? And so this is explaining to us the Jewish idea that marriage does not begin when you say I do. Marriage begins when you have the physical relationship. Up until that time, you can have the marriage annulled. As far as Hashem is concerned, the marriage does not take place until it is consummated. And so you may be engaged to one another, you may be betrothed to one another, but there's no physical relationship. And so the consummation, tet, is the consummation of the relationship, which is done in order to bring about the actuality, the reality of the dream, the hope, the desire to have children. And so chet is potentiality, tet is reality, the womb open in order to receive the seed. Tet is the consummation of chet. So chet in effect becomes impregnated. So at the top of tet, you see the yud. The yud is fashioned. Let me go back to our Aleph Bet page, and you see the Yud here. It is as the seed that is coming in to impregnate the woman. So it's like the seed coming in into the womb. Now, all of this is speaking to us not just in physical terms, but in spiritual terms. But I was telling you how God told Adam and Chava that they were to join together in this way, in this physical union. He says that the two shall become echad. Echad means a union, a unit, a single unit. And so what's amazing about this, what I was telling you is what's amazing about this is in the Jewish concept of Adam and Chava, they were actually already echad. When God created Adam, we spoke to this last Shabbat a little bit, when God created Adam, that the Kabbalistic idea is that they were androgynous, that Adam was actually both male and female. That Adam, from Adamah, Adam is used to describe both male and female, because Adam simply means human or earthling, from Adamah, from the dirt, from the dust. And so the Kabbalistic idea, and they get this with purpose, which we'll go into in a few weeks, as I said, but because God takes Adam out, or takes Chava out from Adam, that she is within him, and God takes her out from within Adam. And why does Adam call her Isha? He says, I shall call you Isha. Adam would be Ish, that is man. And so he calls Chava, he calls her Isha, that is her, the term of her sex is Isha. He's Ish, that is, he is the man. Remember that Adam does not literally mean man, it literally means human or earthling, but Ish means man, I-S-H means man. Isha, I-S-H-A-H, Isha means woman. And so he calls her woman. He calls her Isha. Why Isha? Because Isha comes from Ish. That is, woman comes from man. That because, and Adam goes on to explain, because God took you out of me. He said, you are flesh of my flesh and bone of my bones, therefore I will call you Isha. And so out of man. Isha means out of man, more or less, or the feminized version of man. And so Chava, according to Kabbalah, Chava was within Adam. Isha was within Ish. And God puts Ish to sleep. He puts Cha'ish, the man, to sleep, and he draws out from Cha'ish, Cha'isha, the woman. And so they were already echad. They were already a unit. God pulls Chava out from Adam. He pulls Isha out from Ish. And now they're two separate beings. They are two separate entities. They are Ish and Isha. They are Adam and Chava. Now, God tells them to put themselves back together, to join together in a physical sense, to become echad, to become a unit again, through sexuality, through their sexual relations. This is the closest that man and woman join together, that they become one. This is the closest that they are. This is the closest that a man and a woman, and this is why not to have premarital sex, because you become one with that woman. This is the closest that you come to being completely united with one another. It's through that relationship, through the bonding that takes place in the intensity of the emotions and the feelings and all of that of the sexual relationship. And so Tet is the open womb. Tet is the consummation of Chet. And the giving of the seed, and chet becoming with child, becoming impregnated, so that the hope and the dream becomes reality, becomes actuality. So it is amazing that the number of tet is 9. And we're not going to get to the numerology of tet tonight. But that there are 9 months to a human pregnancy. From conception to birth is approximately 9 months in the normal average human pregnancy. And so tet is the conception, is the consummation, and the conception, the impregnation. And there are 9 months then given to where the hope and the dream from that point becomes actuality and reality when the child is actually born. So we can say, in effect, that 9 can represent to us birth, a new birth, a new birth. Now remember that all of this has to do not just with physicality, but also with spirituality. So once again, going back to the potential that every human being has to be used of God. And the hope and the dream that Mashiach and the Ruach HaKodesh, the Shekinah, have in you and in me. The hopes and the dreams that they cater for us, that they hold for us, that we would become holy people, that we would come out to represent them well, even as a mother and a father have hopes and dreams for that child, and that they hope and dream, that they aspire for that child to grow up well and to do well in their life, to make something of themselves, as it is said. So it is that Mashiach and Ruach HaKodesh, Mashiach and the Shekinah, which represent the husband, which are the husband and the wife, the bride and the groom. Mashiach is the groom, and the Shekinah, the Ruach HaKodesh, is the bride. And so they desire, they hope, if you would, if I can use such a term, that their desire is for them to raise us up to be good, mature adults, to follow their lead in holiness and in righteousness and in goodness, in mercy and in love, and to find ourselves giving over to the responsibility that is ours, to find ourselves, to have ourselves giving over to the obligation of keeping the name, the holy name, good, of lifting that name and bringing glory to that name. As they would say, they say that the nut does not fall far from the tree. Usually it's used as an insult, but that's also true as a good thing, as a compliment. That when a child is good, it is often assumed that the mother and the father raise the child good, that the child is good because the parents are good. It's not always the case. Sometimes, for example, the boy king Yehoshaphat was a good man. He was a good son, a good child. At the age of 8, he was already learning Torah and doing good. His father was an idolater. His mother was an idolatress, but he does good, and he throws out idolatry from the kingdom. But excuse me, that's not Yehoshaphat, but Josiah, boy king. But anyway, but oftentimes the reason why a child is good is because their parents are good, and their parents, and oftentimes somebody will see a child behaving well and doing good, doing right, and the compliment will be made that person was raised right, that they were raised right. And then it is often assumed that a bad child, because they were not raised appropriately, they were not raised right, and so that's often why the term is used that the nut does not fall far from the tree, that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because as the parents go, so goes the child. It's not what you tell your children. It's not how that you tell your children to behave. It's that you do good in front of your children. You set the physical example, the spiritual example for your children, and they follow in your footsteps. They follow your example. Now, again, that's not always the case. That is usually the case, but not always the case. There are times where there's a good, a child has a good set of parents, but they go wild. They want to do their own thing. They want to go their own way, and so they do. And that's human nature. We all are given freedom to choose. But so going back to what we're saying here, that we all have the potential to be used of God, and He wants to use us. And Mashiach and Shekhinah want us to come to be mature in our relationship with them, and to walk as Yeshua walked, and to live as He lived, and to be good, and to be without sin, and all of these things. We have the potential. And so now we have the opportunity to bring it about through our action, to bring it into reality. Do we follow through with our training of what we have done? This is why at the very beginning, in the very first lesson, I warned the students of this class not to take the class just so that you can know. That you're not to take this class just so that you can know, so that you can have more understanding, more knowledge, so that you keep the knowledge for yourself. The whole purpose of this class is so that you can understand, so that you can do. And then not only that you can do, but you can teach others to do. This is the whole purpose of learning in Judaism. If you simply go to school just to learn, just to know something, then that knowledge is wasted. There's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is simply to know. Wisdom is doing good by what you know, by what you've been taught. And so taking those teachings and applying it and using it to bring about good. That's what the Torah is about. The word Torah, you often hear Torah being defined as the law. And that is, in effect, a misnomer. It does not mean the law. It means instruction. Torah means instruction. And so we have been taught, we have been instructed, as the verse says, I will instruct you and teach you the way you shall go. And so this is Torah. I will instruct you. It is our instruction, Torah, instruction. And so the Torah is to instruct us and teach us. So it is, as Rav Shaul tells us in the book of Romans, it is the teacher, it's the schoolmaster, it's the moreh, from moreh, to teach, the teacher, from Torah, the instructions, to give you the lessons in class. But we're not given the lessons in class just so that we can know. We're given the lessons in class so that we can take those lessons and use them. For example, I am a student of language, and I study language all the time. Constantly, I'm studying languages. I use English, and I try to speak proper English. I care about what I sound like, and I try to use proper sentence structure and those kinds of things. I care about it. And so I take the things that I was instructed. The best English teacher I had was my 7th and 8th grade English teacher in junior high. She was teaching us high school English in junior high. And the notes that we had to take in that class, and we got graded on our notes. And so I have tried over the years to take those things which I know and which I understand and apply them. And it helps me to understand the sentence structure and to understand the significance of letters and words and all. And this has helped me in my Hebrew because I'm taking what I know and applying it. You take what you know of the Hebrew language, which we have taught you so far, and you begin to apply it as you're beginning to read Hebrew, and helps you understand what the word is saying, what the significance of it is, and then you take it, so you take it and you apply it. Mathematics, we use mathematics in our lives every day. So I'm still continually, and people say, well, but I don't need my my teacher anymore. I don't need my elementary or my high school or my junior high teacher anymore, my college professor. I don't need them anymore. I've graduated from those things. Yes, but you still use what you have been taught from them. In first grade, I learned that 1 + 1 = 2. Do I need Mrs. Bishop, my first grade teacher, to be sitting by my side and make sure I'm doing it right? No, she taught me already. Now I know that. It's a fact to me, and I use that every day. Therefore, understanding and using 1 + 1 = 2 is wisdom. It's taking what I already know and applying it to my life. So it is with Torah. Taking Torah, just because Torah, Rav Shaul says Torah is our teacher, and people will say, you see there, and you don't need your teacher anymore. It was just your school teacher. But that does not mean you don't need the application anymore. You still take the Torah and apply it to your lives. It is that we do not need, as he says in another place, we do not need to go over the foundation of the groundwork of salvation over and over and over. You've already learned that. We don't need to go over that over and over again. You need to move on, grow up. You don't stay in first grade. That's what he's saying. You don't stay in first grade. You go on to second grade so that you learn now how to multiply and divide in third grade. You learn how to divide in fourth grade and so on. All the way up, you learn how to do fractions and decimal points and all of these things as you get into fourth and fifth grade. And by the time you're in seventh grade, you're beginning to do mild algebra. And eighth grade, you're doing, what's the course called? The beginner algebra course, not algebra, but pre-algebra. And so by eighth grade, you're doing pre-algebra. You're not doing algebra yet. You're doing pre-algebra. As a freshman in high school, you start doing algebra 1 and then algebra 2 and then calculus and all these things. And so you're building upon what you learned last year, building upon what you learned the year before that, and all the way back. But it doesn't mean that you let go of what you learned in first grade. It's still important to you. And so it is with learning Torah. You don't throw away what you learn. You don't throw away what you know. You just don't have to keep going over that groundwork over and over and over and over again. You should become familiar with it. And this is why Rav Shaul tells the people in his letters, you need to grow up. You need to mature. You're still drinking milk. That's why he tells them, we don't need to go over salvation, the rudimentary articles or facts of the faith. We don't need to go over those things again. You should already know them and understand that. And it's time for you to move on and quit staying in first grade over and over. You're 15 years old and still in first grade. You need to already be a freshman in high school or a sophomore, moving into your college years, 20 years old, and you're still in your second and third grade. No, grow up, move on, quit drinking the milk and start eating meat. It's time to start getting honest and becoming critical of ourselves and where we stand in our understanding of these things, and quit just staying in the same place. I tell people here at the synagogue, that we're all in a different place. Not everybody's in the same place. But you've been here for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years. You should have already moved on. You should have already come to some understandings about some things. You should already have a basic understanding of what is kosher, what's not kosher. You don't need me to be telling you again that that's not kosher, that's not halakha. You should already be having some of those things so that we can move on to deeper things and get some deeper teachings instead of laying down the rudimentary facts that are given to us. And the divisiveness, and people that have been coming for 2 or 3 years and they still don't have understanding of things, that because we've not, the reason why we forget things in our faith, in our messianic lifestyle, the reason why we can't remember things is because we're not applying them, so we forget them. You see, I don't remember the things that I learned in geometry class in high school because I never took anything past that. I remember a few things, that two 45 degree angles, a 45 degree angle and a 45 degree angle will make a 90 degree angle. I remember a few things, but I don't remember, and I'm not good at it, and because I never really had a need to apply those things. I'm not good at algebra. I never had algebra 2. I never went beyond algebra 1, and I barely got through that. And I had to take geometry twice because I was really, to be honest, I was not interested in those things because I did not see how they would apply to me. And so I had problems with them because I did not try to apply them. And I've never applied them in my life, hardly ever, I should say. And so they're foreign to me. And in just that way, it's just like, I've never had the need to speak Chinese or Japanese or Russian. And so I never learned those languages. I can speak a few words in German because German DNA runs through my family, and my great-grandparents on both sides of my family spoke German in the home. And so I have a smattering of that. I can speak some Hebrew because I use it. I have a fairly good grasp of Spanish. I don't speak it like I do English, but I have a grasp of it because I use it more consistently. I have a very good grasp of English because I use it every day of my life and practically every hour, even when I'm asleep, because I'm thinking in English. And so I understand it and I remember it, and I remember the rules because I apply them. I remember the grammar rules because I apply them. I can to this day dissect a sentence and put it in its put all of the participles and the verbs and the pronouns and the nouns and all, and I can put them in their proper places, the descriptors, the adjectives and the adverbs and all of that, the prepositional phrases, the preposition, I can do all of that because I use those every day and I understand them and I apply them and I apply the rules and I think these things through. I'm applying them to my life every day. The same thing is true with Torah. You will not remember and you will not apply. Number one, you will not apply what you do not know. And number two, you will not remember what you do not apply. So if you do not apply the things that you're learning here in this class, then you will not learn them. You will not remember them, and neither will you grow from them. Neither will they be a help to you, and you won't learn to read Hebrew. It's as simple as that, because you don't apply them. Because you're not interested and you say, this doesn't apply to me. The same thing is true with Torah. Many people do not know the Torah because they think that it does not apply to them. It does not apply to them. They do not apply it. They do not know it because they do not apply it. And because they do not apply it, they don't remember. And so you learn things about the Torah, but you can't remember what's been taught to you because you have never applied it in your life. It's not, you don't think it's applicable to you. And so you don't know it and you don't remember it. And so you go merely blindly about your way down the street. And that is very problematic in the Messianic movement, very problematic in the church. That we do not know our Bibles because we don't apply our Bibles. And so the Torah is foreign to many people, to the vast majority of people. And the application of halakha and kashrut is foreign to many people. even in the Messianic movement. I can understand what Yeshua says to Nachdimon, to Nicodemus, when he says, are you not a teacher of Torah and you do not understand these things? How long have you been? How long have I been with you? He says to the Talmudim, and you do not understand. How many times do I have to say this? That's what he asks them. How many times do I have to teach this? And Rav Shaul says the same thing to the Corinthians and to the Galatians and to others. Why are you still being babies? Why are you still in first grade and second grade when these things should be already habitual to you? You should already know this inside and out and already have moved on to other things, to deeper things, to greater things. And yet still I'm having to teach you the rudiments, the baby things, the baby steps. And the reason is because we do not apply them. We do not live them. So they're not habit to us. And this is problematic to us. It's problem in trying to keep kosher. It's problem in trying to keep halakha, to walk the walk of a Jewish life. And this is why most of us, we fail at it. And to be honest with you, our failure at being halakhically true and being kosher, our failure in these things is why our lights do not shine brightly. Because we can't answer the questions. And we hide because we know that we can't answer the questions. And so we don't speak up to these things. And we as we've often said, we hide the kippah, we hide the tzitzit, we hide these things because or we don't wear them out in public because we don't want people to know, because we can't answer the question. But the same thing is true about Torah. We can't answer the questions that the people ask us concerning keeping Torah, why we keep Torah, why we keep the Talmud and Kabbalah, why we search these things out, why we study them. We can't answer those questions. They're too hard for us, but the reason why we can't answer those questions is because we do not live them out. And we're confused. We hear something once or twice and we don't apply it to our lives, and so we don't see the purpose of it. We don't understand the purpose of it. It takes 9 months for the baby to be born. You're not always going to see and understand the first moment you hear a teaching. It takes time for the teaching to settle in. It takes time for you to mull it over and to study it and to take it apart and to think about it. And then you start finding verses that back it up, and you start finding scripture and start hearing other teachings and things things in your life that are backing up what is being taught to you. And slowly over a period of time, you come to better understand what is being taught to you. But it's very obvious when a woman is 6 months pregnant. It's not something that can be hid any longer. When she's first pregnant, you cannot tell she's pregnant. When she's 1, 2, 3, 4 months pregnant, when she's 4 months pregnant, there may be a little show, but you can't hardly tell. But a woman that is 6, 7, 8 months pregnant, 9 months pregnant, you can very well tell. When a woman is 9 months pregnant, you can tell that it's ready to burst, and the child is ready to come. And so it is with a person who is practicing Torah truthfully, in spirit and in truth. You're keeping Torah in spirit and in truth. You're walking halakha. That's what halakha means, the walk. That you're walking the walk, not just talking the talk. That you are keeping Shabbat, and you're loving God with all of your heart, strength, and soul and strength. That you are loving your neighbor as yourself. It becomes very evident, especially in these times, where this cannot often be said of people, even in church. It cannot often be said of people. And so we are commanded to let our light shine. That Yeshua said, a city that is built on a hill cannot be hid. He says that you don't light a candle and hide it under a bushel, under a bucket or a cup. That you let and he said, so let your light shine forth so that men can see it. So when you are Torah observant, you cannot hide it. Even as a woman who is 6, 7, 8 months pregnant cannot hide her pregnancy. So you cannot hide when you are pregnant, a part of your everyday life when it is habitual to you. This is why you need to learn Torah. This is why every year we start the parashot anew. We start with a new parasha. We go through the Torah we start over in Genesis and we go all the way through Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And in the fall, we start over again with Genesis. And every year we go over and we cycle and we cycle and we cycle. Just like a woman cycles and she cycles and she cycles. And every time we go through it, we pick up something new to add, to apply, to learn. The first time we learned the rudimentary elements. But then the next year we learn other things about it, and we learn how to apply it, and we learn deeper things and more distinct things. And we start learning how to apply the letters to the Hebrew and how deeper that takes us, and how even in this week's parasha, in this week's portion, there's a verse. I believe that we get to the verse tomorrow in tomorrow's parasha, that there's two backward nuns before a certain verse in the Torah scroll. There's a backward nun and a backward nun, and basically they are to us they are they're like quotation marks or parentheses. And in Judaism, the Chazal teach us that the sages teach us that it's just a couple of verses, and it's the verses that we quote every Shabbat when we open up the Ark where the Torah scroll is, and then we quote the scripture that says, "And Moshe, as the Ark would travel, Moshe would say that the Lord goes before the Ark," and that statement. And so we'll come to that portion, and in the Torah scroll itself, it is set apart by two backward nun. And so as we study these things, it gives us understanding of why that is about. And the nun, as we come to that in a few weeks, the nun speaks to life. That is something alive, something living, alive. And so it is set off with these nuns because that portion of scripture is to bring to life, as the ark would get up to move, as the cloud would get up to move, and then they would take down the tabernacle, they would put the ark on their shoulders, and it would begin to move. And the trumpet, we learned yesterday in yesterday's portion that the silver trumpets would blast out, and the people would know that it was time to move. And so they would get all their possessions together, and as the ark would move out, they would all move out. So you learn one thing on top of another, as the scripture says, verse upon verse, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little. And so you're taking what you learn, but you're not going to remember what you learn if you don't apply it. You only remember what you apply. And if you don't apply it, if you think it doesn't apply to you, if you think it's no big deal, you don't have to worry about it and all of these kinds of things. Well, that's why you can't remember the teachings, and that's why you're still and I'm not trying to insult you, I'm just being honest with you. That's why you're still in a childish phase of your faith, a childish phase of your messianicism, of your Judaism, because you're not applying these things to your life. You listen to the teaching, but you don't learn it and you don't apply it, and then you forget about it, and you're off onto something else. And this is why this is why many people are chasing these rabbit trails all over the place. They get all excited about this one, and then they'll study it for a while, and then they drop, and they're all excited about that one, and they drop it for a while. Even about messianicism itself, people who they pick up messianicism with a fervor and they chase it for a while, but then they grow used to it, and they drop it, and they go off onto something else. They'll go chase another tangent. They'll go chasing after something else. And the same thing is true in Christianity, because these things are not applied. And because they're not applied, you lose interest in it, and It's not a habit to you, and so you lose interest in it, and you forget, and you don't remember these things. And so that's immaturity, that's infantilism, and that's what Rav Shaul is fussing at us about in our relationship with God, in our relationship with the Bible, in our relationship with Torah. Not that we don't need it and it doesn't apply and we shouldn't use it and all these things. No, that we should already be past the stage of having to lay down again the foundation, the rudiments of this, the elementary things of it. You're not in elementary school anymore. You need to move on to junior high and high school and college. And so we need to bring about the actuality. So these things are, in speaking to this, it takes time. And so we need to work on these things. And once again, this is what, for example, the days of awe, the 40 days of Teshuvah are coming up in a couple of months. And we begin the 40 days that coming into Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and the 40 days of Teshuvah and the 10 days of awe. And that's what all of that is for, that we can apply these things, the days that we just finished, the days of counting the Omer, and taking handfuls of working day by day on this aspect, on that aspect, on this thing, on that thing, and applying them to our lives. That's what this is all about. Every day is an opportunity for us. Every day is an opportunity given to us to bring into reality, to bring into actuality the things that we have learned from Torah, from our own studies, from attending synagogue, from listening to rabbis and teachers and all of this. And so there are 9 months to human pregnancy. We need to start taking the time to apply these things. So pregnancy is the act of potential becoming reality. Pregnancy is the act of potential becoming reality. So Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 4. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4. God's view of marriage. Now, there are people who think that sexuality is dirty, that it's bad. I use sexuality to explain Kabbalah. By that, I say this. I explain Kabbalah and our stand on Kabbalah in this way. Because there are people who think that Kabbalah is bad. Original Kabbalah is not bad. It is, in fact, what explains to us the Messiah. Because these things are actually not taught. The concept that we have today of Mashiach were not given to us per se in the Tanakh, but the ideas are built from the significance of words and letters and these kinds that we're studying. The deeper things, the hidden things. Isaiah 53, if you lived 300 years or 400 years before Mashiach, before Yeshua came, how would you understand that was a messianic concept? Because there's no teaching per se as to the messianic concept as we have today. And yet they knew already before Yeshua ever came, they already were calling that, they already called that a messianic portion of scripture, that it was a description of Messiah, Mashiach. How did they even know that a Mashiach was coming? And so Kabbalah is not what the New Agers make it today to be magic and spells and all of that kind of stuff. We don't do that. Kabbalah is to explain to us mysteries that are within the scripture. And that's what original Kabbalah was about. And so I ask people, okay, sexuality, is it good or is it bad? There's a sexual relationship, is it good or is it bad? There are some who would say it's bad. There are some who would say, oh, it's good. The truth is that it's neither good nor bad. It is good or bad depending upon how it's used. If sexuality is used in a way contrary to Torah, then it is bad. But if it is used in a way that's following Torah, that is halakha, then it is good. And if it were not for sexuality, we would not have children. If we did not have children, the human race would not continue. And so it is neither good nor bad, depending on how it is used. It is good or bad. The same thing is true with Kabbalah. Can Kabbalah be used for bad? Yes. Can it be used for good? Yes. Is it good or bad? It depends on how it is being used. And so here, the author of the book of Ivri, of Hebrews, says, let marriage be held in honor among all, and the marriage bed kept undefiled. That marriage is honorable. He's talking about the relationship between a husband and wife. The physical relationship is an honorable relationship. That there's honor in it. There's glory in it. In fact, it's one of the mitzvah. It's the mitzvah. It's one of the mitzvot that is given. And in fact, it is the first mitzvah that is given to Adam and Chava, to be fruitful and multiply. Now, as chata enters, as sin enters into the human realm, now it becomes dependent upon whether it is being used according to Torah, according to instruction, or it's being used against instruction, contrary to instruction. It's like asking if my eyes are good or bad. Well, it depends on why I'm using them. My ears, why am I using them? You can apply the same thing. And so marriage is held in high esteem in Judaism. The relationship, the physical relationship, is held in high esteem. This is, in effect, the closest that the human being comes to creation, to true creation, in that we are what we would say we are creating children. That is that God takes us and he uses us as an act of creation in bringing forth life. So that that humanity, the male and the female bring together, the man and the woman bring together, the seed and the egg, and the seed and the egg together bring forth life. And this is the potentiality coming to reality, coming to actuality. How honorable is the marriage bed between a husband and a wife? So honorable that in Judaism, this is one of the acts, one of the things, one of the mitzvot that are to be accomplished on Shabbat. So holy and consecrated is the act between a man and a woman, between a husband and his wife, that it is one of the acts, one of the mitzvot that are to be accomplished on Shabbat. That the husband and wife become echad and bring joy and pleasure to one another. I remember years ago, there was a young couple attending service, and he was having problems, he was having issues, and so they came for counseling. And the issue basically was that the woman felt that the physical relationship was an ugly, dirty thing, and not to be, coming from a Christian background, not to be performed on a Sunday, because Sunday was the holy day. And because she understood that sexuality was a bad thing, a dirty thing, and all like that, so you don't have sexual relations on a holy day, and so not on a Sunday. And the answer is no, it's just the opposite. sexuality between a husband and wife is to be considered honorable and holy. That it is not defiled. It is not defilement. But rather it is a glorious thing, it is a desirable thing, it is an honorable thing to do. It is a mitzvah. It is a good deed to do. So good and holy and honorable is it that in Judaism, the husband and the wife are to have relation on Shabbat. It is a holy act. And so marriage is to be held in honor among all, and the marriage bed kept undefiled. We're going to stop there for tonight. Next week we'll get into, I'll give you a heads up, the tail. We'll get into what the tet looks like and its descriptions from there. So with that we say, Erev Tov, good evening, and Shalom. ¿Cómo estás? Bien, bien. Tomorrow evening, yes. 8 o'clock. Yes. If you want aloe vera, there's more left. You can have some more aloe vera. Did you take any aloe?
Oh, we have. Thank you.
Okay.
Plantas, yeah.
Plantas, sí.
El chip, 1-7.
1-7?
Yeah.
Guess what?
Plantó el ojito,
Oh, sí, sí.
plantó,
Yes, the creation of plants.
Yeah.
Okay. Shalom, shalom.
Bye-bye.
Yes. uh,